do this now. Take out what you did for today and have it in front of you. And then open your notebooks and open your books. And,
Microphone.
oh, sorry. Sorry. Maybe we'll just put it on Rachel.
Yeah. That'd be great.
All right, here we go. All right. Check, check, check. Yeah, see what you can do about that, Brendan. See what you can do. All right, here we go. Are you guys ready for a good day?
Yes.
Yeah, exciting day? Okay, so what I want to do is take a couple minutes to do a little review, okay? Hello? Hello? Little review. The big idea that I want to make sure you took away from yesterday has to do with the way that I think Queequeg is functioning in the story. Hey, you need to be paying close attention to right now, okay? So look at your notes from yesterday. How is Queequeg functioning as a character? He's a character, obviously, but what I'm trying to get you to see is that Melville's up to something. He's using him in a certain way, and if you're paying attention, you notice it. Go, Maya.
You were saying that he was acting like more Christian than like he's not Christian, but he's acting more Christian than the people who actually are Christian.
Okay, and here's my question. For what purpose is that being achieved? Or what purpose is Melville accomplishing by showing him in that light, that he's, as I said yesterday, out-Christianing the Christian? Come on, work on that.
Is it kind of like the, I feel like I'm going to say something wrong. Is it
It's
kind
all
of
right.
like the whale, like you said whale is like God's instrument, so is he kind of like God's instrument?
Well, but for what, I guess is what I'm asking. No, that's good, Maya. You're heading in the right direction. So think about it for a minute. If you're a civilized person, you're a Christian, you're a Westerner, and here's this other guy who's a savage and a pagan, and yet he's behaving heroically, generously, you're right, virtuously. What's the point? Go ahead, Kara.
Making himself superior to everyone else.
Or if not making himself superior.
Making everyone like superior to him. Wait, I don't know.
No. Think about what you're saying again. Try that one more time. Like his example, what is it doing?
It's proving that you don't have to be white and Christian to be a good person.
Okay, and what we're seeing, so he's reflecting on other people. Do you guys see this? He's reflecting perhaps the unchristianness of the world he's living in, maybe the uncivilized quality of the civilized world. Look, let me ask you, you better be able to answer this question. Where did we see this before?
Yeah.
Speak.
Franklin, when he was talking about the natives and like he was showing like how they treat like outsiders better than the white Christians do.
Do you guys remember what she's talking about? Remember that essay? You should make a note of this. Like the remarks concerning the savages in North America. The savages were really, in some ways, a tool for Franklin to show how like inefficient, how unkind, how sort of civilized, quote, civilized people were. Okay, so that's one thing really important. For he's acting as a kind of mirror for people to look at themselves. Now, look, this is the other thing I really wanted to point out. We've talked about being white, Western, civilized, but there's another feature to him which is very important, and I'm going to remind you of some lines. A man can be honest in any skin he's in. As if a white man were anything more dignified than a whitewashed Negro. Like, what is he obviously also emphasizing about Queequeg? No, you're not listening to my question, my quotes. As if a white man were anything more dignified than a whitewashed Negro. And a man could be honest in any skin he's in.
Everyone's like equal.
Yeah. But what is it? What aspect of Queequeg is he clearly? His skin color, right? Are you guys seeing this? He's pointing out something about race and skin color, yes? And what is he essentially saying about Queequeg's skin color?
It doesn't like matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, there's no, listen, think about this for a minute. Think about yourself as a 19th century American, and you're hearing an author say, there's nothing more dignified in being white than dark, right? That's a pretty revolutionary idea in the 19th century in America. Capiche? You with me? And even though he is a he's from the Polynesian Islands. And what color is his skin? Do you remember? I mean, it's dark, but what color is he? He describes it in chapter 3. Yeah, but he says like purplish. Remember, he's like this purple skin, he claimed. So he's clearly not like African. But what I want you to see is that he's being used in some ways by Melville as a way to comment on what's going on in America as far as race. You with me? Okay, so just keep your eyes peeled for this. Queequeg is a way for Melville to very kind of cleverly and maybe secretly talk about race. Amen? Amen. And then the only other thing I'll mention from yesterday is, remember I talked about that you can read the book in other ways? What were those 2 other ways I talked about? No, like just a whole nother way. I went off on this tangent yesterday. Yeah, a documentary to a whole way of life that's disappeared, right? And then the author clearly feels nostalgia about, right? And then what was the other one? This whole long chapter in what whole narrative? Look at your notes. You got nothing? Man's search for something. Miles. Nothing. I don't believe it. This is very sad. No. Look, I talked about, like, we used to use wood, and then we maybe would use peat, and then we would use coal, and then we would use kerosene, right? Yeah, this whole idea of a search for fuel. You guys remember this? And over the centuries, it's been one thing and another, and a lot of times the way we get it is like crazy. It takes so much effort, and it's so kind of convoluted, and this is just one chapter in that story. Do we get carbohydrates, fluorocarbons from whales anymore? No, we don't, right? That's gone. That seems like a crazy thing in the past. And what I'm trying to get you to see is when you have kids, the way we do it now, I guarantee you will be thought of as like something crazy that we used to do. Tearing whole mountains down, dig coal out and burn it. It's like the most kind of dirty thing possible, right? People are like, what? That's nuts. Okay, you ready for the next thing? All right, let's do this. Let's do a little quiz-a-rooney. Just like oral here. All right, you ready for this? Who knows this? This is for honors only, or those of you who read 14. How was Nantucket Island first discovered? 1, 2, 3 people know the answer to that? Say it, Miles. That's correct. Right. It was a Native American family, right, that rode out after an eagle. Very good. What do they have to import to Nantucket?
Like wood, everything. Yeah.
Wood, weeds. Remember that?
Yeah.
It's such a barren place that they have to import weeds. It was a joke. You guys got that? Okay. How about this? What 2 kinds of chowder can you get at Mistress Hussey's? Brandon?
Cod and clam.
Very good. Why, Emma, why is it that Mistress Hussey said, no harpoons in the bedroom? TK?
Some guy earlier on had taken one up and he stabbed himself.
Very good, right? Now how about this? Kara? Who needs to choose the ship? According to whom? Very good. Excelente. How many ships are there to choose from, Isaiah? 3. Very good. How old is the Pequod, Nick? Pretty old. Good answer. What's the answer? It's 50 years old. Half a century. Very good, Mikey. Excelente. What was Peleg sitting under when Ishmael first encounters him?
TP of whale bone.
TP of whale. No. We went over this yesterday. Yeah, what's that called? Yeah, you remember what it's called? It starts with a B. It's actually, en français, that's how you say whale. Baleen, right? Remember those big filter-like teeth they have. He's under a teepee of them. Very good. What is a lay? What is a lay? You all need to know the answer to this. Maya, the definition for us. What's a lay?
It's like the amount you get paid after your journey.
Okay, fair enough. It's a portion, right? It has to do with your payment. What lay did Bildad offer Ishmael? Camden? What lay, Camden? What lay, Christian?
777.
Very good. Do you think he was being serious?
No. This is like
Yeah, I don't think so.
Biblical joke.
Yeah, it's a biblical joke. Because at one point, did you guys get that joke? It's not a very funny joke, but
It was Matthew, I don't remember what passage it was.
Yeah.
but it was something from-
I mean, it's not that important. But if you don't get it, you don't get it. But I will say this. Here's the station break. A little advertisement. I want to encourage you guys. If you're anywhere near your computer when you read, you should check out this website. It's called Power Moby Dick. It's an exercise routine. I use it all. No, it's Power Moby Dick is the following. You should definitely all check this out. It's a website that's just basically a hyperlinked text. So any word that you don't know, or any word that's an allusion to something, or anything that's maybe a nautical term that you might not know, it has right there a link, and it will show you what it means over here, right? So this book has a few little notes in the back, but that site, Power Moby Dick, is really good. You should check it out, okay? All right. Good. Let's do this. We didn't all read chapter 14, but I want to read one little section of chapter 14 because it has to do with a big idea in the novel that I really want you guys to start noticing as we go along here. And it's this. You ready for this, Jay Shin? Yeah. All right. One of the big ideas in the novel that's going to get repeated over and over again, you'll see, is the nobility and the grandness that's associated with whaling, right? Whaling is this really difficult and demanding task. And over again, Ishmael is just like enchanted by these men who are able and willing to do this. And the first place I'd like you guys to look is in the chapter called Nantucket. So I know that not all of you read it, which is fine. But everybody turn, if you wouldn't mind, to page 56. And one of the things I want you to notice is this. Of course, where are the greatest whalers from? Nantucket, because that's the original place, right? The greatest whalemen are from Nantucket. It's the origin of whaling. And so he has this sort of like hymn to Nantucketers because of their intrepidness. What does it mean to be intrepid? You guys know that word? Yeah, very brave. Very good, Jay Shin. Brave, bold, and this is the Nantucketer. Okay, let's read this a little bit with me. Okay, here we go. Now, listen. Another one of the reasons to read this book, Camden, is that it's so visually delightful. Like, I'm telling you right now, I'm making a vow. It's big in this book, right? If I ever win Powerball, okay, like the big one, you know, like a couple $100 million, a big portion of it is going to go to making a Moby Dick film. And you'll all be hired, okay? You'll all, I'll get, huh?
Didn't they just make it?
That was weak sauce. It was not from the film. This is not from the book. This is going to be a long movie. It might take you a few weeks to watch, okay? But the point is, it's going to be, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, that's right. It's going to be a mini-series, okay? And, but I'll tell you, like, we're going to have scenes in it like this, okay? I'm going to read to you a little bit of this, and you'll see, like, oh, the visual there is so perfect. Okay, so let's read this part together. Ready? Start on page 56, about 3/4 of the way down, and he's just kind of praising the Nantucketer for the glory that's associated with whaling. Listen to what he says here. I'm going to start with the Nantucketer, he alone resides. Can you find that, please? The Nantucketer, he alone resides and riots on the sea. He alone, in Bible language, goes down to it in ships, to and fro, plowing it as his own special plantation. There is his home. There lies his business, which a Noah's flood would not interrupt, though it overtook all the millions of China. He lives on the sea as prairie cocks in the prairie. He hides among the waves. He climbs them as chamois hunters climb the Alps. For years he knows not the land, so that when he comes to it at last, it smells like another world, more strangely than the moon would to an earthman. With the landless gull that at sunset folds her wings and is rocked to sleep between billows, those are waves, so at nightfall the Nantucketer, here it is, out of sight of land, furls his sails and lays him down to rest, while under his very pillow rushes herds of walruses and whales. Oh, that's good, right? Scene opens. You ready for this? Scene opens. A weary Nantucketer on board a ship. The day's over. He furls his sails. He goes down into the hold, down the forecastle, as they say, to lay him down to sleep. And then what we have is a cutaway view of the hull. Are you following me? So you see him sleeping, and here's the hull of the ship, and what is underneath him? Great ocean beasts, walruses and whales swimming under him. Scene over. You like it? I mean, that's visually delightful. So listen, all through that chapter of 14, so I hope you're making a note of this. Chapter 14 is one of the first places we see Ishmael just praising the Nantucketer in particular, but in general the whaleman. He's like an emperor. He owns most of the globe, because what's most of the globe covered with? Water, and it's his, right? You know, he's not like a pirate who just steals from other ships. He's like a farmer who gets his living actually out of the very thing he's living on, the water, right? He gets it from the depths of the sea. He's like, what? These guys are amazing, right? Look. What does every young, red-blooded, I'm going to say boy, but girl or boy, want? Like, what's the greatest kind of adventure job you could have these days? Like the greatest adventure you could possibly have. Go where? No, even bigger now. Yeah, go to space. Are you following me? This was written before such things even existed, right? You can actually go to outer space, can't you? You can. And notice this. Ishmael compares, doesn't he? He compares the whaleman to like an astronaut. He says like they are in an element that is so foreign from him, it would be like some earthman going to the moon. Remember this? Which didn't exist in his day. So anyway, point number one today, new stuff from last night's reading, is the whaleman as kind of hero, right? As an extraordinary individual. Uno. All right, let's do this. Let's now look at chapter 16. This is a super important chapter. It's just called the ship, right? I'm going to tell you. This is what I would call it. Very good. Now look, let me ask you something. As Ishmael leaves the Pequod, right, and goes back to his room where Queequeg is, how's he feeling? Think for a minute. How is Ishmael feeling as he leaves the Pequod? He's just sealed the deal. He's going to be ship with this crew. How is he feeling as he's going back to the tripods?
Like possibly a little anxious.
He's feeling anxious. Why? Primarily, what's the main thing that happened on that ship that's making him feel a little anxious, like something might be looming?
He didn't meet the captain.
Okay, it has to do with Ahab, right? Has Ahab appeared yet? No, but look, I don't know about you, but this is not, I heard all kinds of stuff about this guy, which would make me feel very anxious about the 3 years in front of me. Like, he sounds very mysterious, very strange. I'm actually feeling a little troubled. I'm thinking to myself, like, what have I gotten myself into? Yes? Okay, let's talk about Ahab for a minute. We haven't met him, but we've heard about him from someone who knows him well, right? Both Bildad and Peleg have shipped with him before. They know him very well. What do we learn about him? Let's just, some facts or maybe some observations from them. Go, Isaiah. Okay. He has you'll find out later, he has a peg leg. And it's from a sperm whale, right? A sperm whale took off his leg on a recent voyage. It's not that long this has happened. What else, Christian?
He's
Well, finish the line.
It's ungodly but godly.
Yes. What a bizarre thing to say about someone, right? He says he's an ungodly, godlike man. You should write that down, what Christian just said. He's an ungodly, godlike man. I mean, that is very strange and maybe troubling. Yeah, what else, Emma?
He's married and has a kid.
He is fairly newly married, right? And he has a young son. Remember that? And if you remember, the guy he's talking to, Peleg, sees that as extremely important, right? That's and we'll talk about why in a minute. What else? What else? Go, Brad.
Didn't they say that he kind of like went insane?
During the last voyage, when he lost his leg, he went into kind of a raving mania. But if you remember, Peleg said, "But that's going to pass. It's going to be that's no problem now." But let's so last voyage. There's this kind of mania. Okay, what else? Say it.
Really, it was a lance?
Okay, he says, yeah. He says his lance is the best in the island, right? So he's really good at whaling. But he says a weird thing about his lance. What is he? You should be on this page. What page is that? 71. What has he stuck his lance into? Something that's, again, extremely inscrutable. Find this. What does he say, Emma?
It's like in the third to last paragraph, and towards the very end, he says that he lanced stranger foes to whale.
He has, what's the verb? He has lanced, or he stuck his...
Lance and fixed.
He has fixed his lance into stranger and mightier foes than whales. Now, what is mightier than a whale? Well, I guess my point is, like, I can't imagine what that would be. What would you stick your lance into, which is kind of like a harpoon, that is mightier and stranger than a whale? Now, again, this just adds the mystery, too, right? He's had mightier foes than the whale. And by the way, when I read that line recently, I was thinking about old Thoreau. What did Thoreau said you might want to shoot? Yourself. And what did he mean by that? Did he mean like you should kill yourself with a gun? No, what was he talking about? Okay, put attention to pursue something. That's what he meant by hunting and shooting. So I wonder if this means something like that. Like he has subdued with his mind or something, maybe not his actual lance. Strange things. Okay, hey, look, you're forgetting another couple things. What does he say in the very beginning? He says, hey, I'd like to meet this guy. What does he say? He says, I'm a little concerned. I haven't met the captain yet. What does Peleg then immediately say back to him? Go, just sing it out. He doesn't see people. Why? He's sick, but not sick. But then he's not well either. You guys remember this? Right? So, I mean, is the guy sick or not? Right? He says he's an ungodly God. What do these things have in common? Ungodly, godlike man, sick but well. Yeah, these are weird contradictions. He even says this other thing. He's been where? To colleges and where else? Among cannibals. And what are those things like?
Polar opposites.
Yeah, polar opposites, extremes. Highly cultivated and civilized, highly uncivilized, right? So this, I like the way that someone said this. This is a man of contradictions, at least from the point of view of Peleg. This is a man full of strange contradictions. He's sick. Well, not really. He's not really well either. He's educated, but he's a cannibal, savage. He is someone who's ungodly, but then he's godlike. Like, what does this all mean, right? It's very weird. And if you remember, we spend a little time talking about his name, which is very important to me because if you remember, Peleg says this great thing. He says, he's above the common. What does that word, what does that phrase mean? He's above the common. Cedric, what does that mean? Yeah, if I said, Cedric, he is above the common. Okay, smart, well put together. Come on, help him out more. Yeah, he's just like, he's a superior man, right? He is above the common. He says, he's no Peleg and he's no Bildad. He's Ahab, boy. And Ahab of old was a crowned king. So there's something royal about him. But what is, of course, Ishmael, who is a sort of scholar, we know this. What does he immediately say? He said, yeah, but Ahab
was one of the. Didn't he upset the Israelites?
yes, remember the word he used? Yeah, but he was a vile one. Sure, his name is kingly and royal, but a vile. Do you guys know who Ahab is? Yeah. Say no or yes or something. Hello, yes? Yeah. So listen, Ahab, you need to know this. I wonder if you know his wife's name. Does anybody know the wife of Ahab in the Old Testament? Huh? No. She's a very famous bad girl. Brittany, that's close. No. Have you ever heard of this name, Jezebel? Jezebel. Look, if your grandma calls you a Jezebel, what is she basically saying about you? Yeah, you're a naughty girl, right? And I mean, Jezebel is synonymous with being bad, right? Jezebel's wife was Ahab's wife, Jezebel, was a terrible woman, and Ahab was a terrible man. And what happens to Ahab? Ishmael told you. He's told you right there last night in your reading. What happened to that guy? He dies outside the city gates and the dogs lick his blood. Like, he has a bad ending. Are you following me? And that's what Ishmael says. And you remember Peleg said, hey, don't say that. Do not say that. His name doesn't mean anything, right? Like, it was just a whim of his mother's. You guys remember this? Right? And you know, like Ishmael, who is somebody who's like tuned into names. We've already seen this. I mean, this isn't lost on him, right? So, on the one hand, we have all these kind of wild, crazy contradictions and strange sort of foreboding descriptions of this guy, which includes his name. And if you remember, if you're an eagle-eyed reader, you'll remember there was this weird Indian squaw he mentioned named Tistig. Did anybody bother noting that? Tistig. Look at your book. What did that old squaw Tistig say about his name? It would somehow prove prophetic. Now, listen, if your name is... Well, let's just do it. If your name is Ahab, and someone tells you your name is going to prove prophetic, what does that imply is going to happen to you? You'll have the same... And what was Ahab's fate? The other one, the king one from Old Testament. Yeah, he died dishonorably, and his body was laid out in broad daylight. Stop doing that, please, for the dogs to lick his blood. Are you following me? Now, again, but if you remember, Peleg says, just don't pay any attention to that stuff. That just doesn't mean anything, right? You remember this? That doesn't mean anything. He says, in fact, how can there be anything to hold against this man? What has he done recently in his old age? No. He says he argues for his humanity.
He's gotten married.
He's recently been married to a young wife, and by that young wife, had a son. Can there be... What is that line? Read it out loud. It's beautiful. This is like Peleg, his old friend, trying to make an argument for him. What does he say? Read it. Yeah, go ahead, Rachel, say it.
Then there can be any other...
That's a question.
Oh, yeah. Think of that, by that sweet girl, that old man had a child. Hold ye, then there can be any utter hopeless harm you may have. No, my lad. Stricken, blasted if he be, Ahab has his humanities.
Okay, yeah, that's not bad. All right, now listen, Brandon, you want to open your book. That's really important. Look, I'm going to read this with a little bit more passion. Okay, this is what he's saying. Listen, look, if you were a young green hand about to sign on to the ship, and you heard all this noise, how would you feel? Very uneasy. So much so that what would you might want to do? Just back out of this thing, right? And Peleg says, listen, hold on, let me just read this. He says the following. He says, where are we? Here we go. Besides, my boy, he's pleading. He has a wife, not 3 voyages wedded, a sweet, resigned girl. Think of that. That sweet girl, by that sweet girl wedded, the old man had a child. Hold ye then there can be any utter hopeless harm in Ahab? What's the answer supposed to be? No, of course. How can there be some hopeless harm in such a man who is willing to open his heart up to a wife at this age and have a child by him? No, what's the last line? Ahab has his humanity. You need to underline that. Ahab has his humanities. This is going to come and bite us in the ear later on, okay? So underline that line. On the one hand, he's being displayed, or portrayed, I should say, as this dark, strange character, and yet his old friend is saying, like, no, he has human qualities that we should feel sympathetic to, right? Go ahead, TK, you first.
I don't know, but when I was reading it, I kind of felt like
Peleg.
Peleg, he was like kind of unreliable because at some point, like he was like, oh, he's just like me, but like nothing like me at all, and like it seemed like he was always like advocating for him.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah, that's a good point. Look, this portrait that we're getting of Ahab is strange, and that's why I call this chapter Loomings. But it may be that we need to sift it ourselves, right? We can't be sure in every sense like what this guy's like, right? It's a very odd portrait of the man, and as all of you said already, he leaves anxious. Yeah, go.
like since he's
A little louder, Emma.
since he's supposed to have like an unhonorable death, or
Well, who knows? That may just be
Well, that's
nonsense.
what the prophet says.
Yes.
Like, could the death have been like him actually dying from the sperm whale, but he like escaped it with just his leg being off?
Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. Do you follow what she's saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we know that he has escaped an encounter with a whale, right, that nearly did him in. And what you're saying is, could that have been the prophecy? And he somehow dodged. I like it. Make a note of it. Good work. Now, yes?
I noticed, is it Peleg?
Peleg.
Peleg said, when he said a moody good captain is better than a laughing bad one, and then it reminded me of Ishmael when he said,
Yeah.
"Better to sleep with a sober camel than a drunken Christian."
Hear her. Do you hear this?
Yeah.
Say that again. That was a really good observation.
Peleg said a moody good captain is better than a laughing bad one, and that reminded me of Ishmael when he said it's better to sleep with a sober camel than a drunken Christian.
Yeah, and in both cases, you're given, or in all, if you add them all up, you're given these weird opposites, right? A moody, good captain, what's the word? A laughing, bad one. Those are all sort of like half of one thing, half of another. Similarly, what do we have? Are Christians supposed to get drunk? No, right? And we don't tend to think of savages as sober, right? So he's pointing out like these kind of funny little, again, contradictions, and that's a really good point. You know, he's saying like it's better to sign on with this guy. Well, again, you ought to make a note on write in your book. Is this true? In other words, is Peleg right? We'll find out, right? It's better to have a moody but good captain, and I think by good he means competent. You with me? Like a seaman. He really knows what he's doing. Now, Kara answered a question correctly earlier, which I want to hit because it's thematic. You ready for this? One of the points about this book that I've already emphasized a little bit, but I'm going to just mention it again because I want you to keep your eyes peeled for it, has to do with fate and choice and freedom. Okay? Do you guys remember in the very first chapter he says, another reason I went to sea is that the stage manager's fate like arranged it for me to go. Hello, do you guys remember this? He said, I thought I was acting out of free will, but now that I look back, it turns out that I wasn't. It was like these cunning devices of fate to get me to do one thing or another. Do you guys remember that? And he describes them as sort of stage managers, like this whole thing is a play. Hello? Yes? Like he's had a part that's written out. Now listen, last night, the first part of chapter 16 says something very curious. What does Queequeg tell Ishmael that needs to happen? And according to whom? Yojo. So now I want you to think about this a minute. Yojo tells Queequeg to tell Ishmael to go choose a boat. And what will the choice be? Well, no, like how? No. It'll be Yojo's choice. Are you guys seeing this? Like he says, Yojo, the little god, right, says, if you tell him to go choose, then my choice will be made.
So Ishmael will choose whatever. He knows what Ishmael's going to choose.
And it's going to be the choice he wants him to have. Are you guys following this? So in other words, it's an interesting thing. Like, according to Ishmael at least, at this moment, who's arranging the choices? Yeah, and what is Yojo? A god, right? He says he's not a very good God. Remember that? He's not very effective. Remember that? He tries really hard, but things don't always go his way. Which actually, listen, if you're an eagle-eyed reader, you may say to yourself, this is potentially an interesting commentary on God. In other words, God's full of good intentions, but he's never very good at accomplishing his mission. Are you following me? Like the whole idea of God being maybe omnipotent. Maybe Yojo is a way of kind of like poking at that idea. Are you with me? So look, all I want to do is get you to see, like, here we are again. Who's choosing? Ishmael thought he was choosing, right? But he was told to choose by Queequeg, who was told to choose by Yojo. So you need to be thinking about this, like, whose choice is this? Now, let's hit one more thing if we can. We were introduced to another character last night who I think is one of the most important characters of the whole book. Who was it? And I'm going to go like this. Now, Bildad and Peleg, we're never going to see them again. It's a character. Very well described, very important. The Pequod, right? Yeah, very good. The Pequod. Now, let's do this. Let's make sure we all have a strong image of this Pequod. What are the things you remember reading about the Pequod? First of all, what is it named after? Who remembers this and noticed this? Hey. What is the Pequod named after? Only one person knows? Two? I'm asking you all. Are you reading carefully? It doesn't look like it. What was the Pequod named after?
It was named after an extinct native tribe.
Exactly. The Pequods were an Indian tribe, and they are gone. Remember this. A very warlike tribe. They're gone. Uno. What else did you learn about it?
It's like an old school.
It's old school. It's old-fashioned, right? It's a rare old craft. Did you guys understand this? He said it had a claw-footed look about it. Yeah. When you think of claw-footed, what do you think of? Hey. What? Yeah, an old have you ever seen old bathtubs that have like claw feet to them or no? Yeah. You know, that's like an old-fashioned tub. Some old-fashioned furniture also has like claw-footedness to it. Now, clearly, a ship doesn't have any feet on it, but it's got that quality of being antique. What else? What are the other details you remember? Yes, but how? With like party favors?
Sea ivory.
Sea ivory. What is sea ivory? Do you know? Or is it whales that swim? I mean, elephants that swim? What is sea ivory?
Whale bones.
Whale bones and whale teeth. Now look, a sperm whale tooth is about that long. 14, 16 inches long. And if you remember, listen carefully. This is an image you have in that. The bulwarks are like a railing around the ship. And normally, they would be paneled. You guys have decks at your houses? You ever been to a deck? It's got little pickets. Yeah. You with me? The pickets in this case, what are they? They're whale teeth. What is the whole thing? What's the adjective he sees? What kind of craft is it? It's starts with a C. It's a cannibalish craft. Now, does that sound familiar? We're getting cannibals in our lives these days? Yes, we do, right? Cedric, yes, we do. Oh, no, I don't. Maybe you do. But look, we got Queequeg, who is a bona fide cannibal, right? And we've got this ship that looks like a cannibal because I love this verb he uses, tricked out, right? And all these campaign trophies, right? What is the tiller made out of? Do you guys know what a tiller is or not? Okay, so, yeah, most ships back then would have had a steering wheel, but a more old-fashioned version is, it's like a kind of lever that controls the rudder that allows you to steer the thing, right? And it has a big, long tiller, and what is the tiller made of? The jawbone of a whale. Did you see that picture of me sitting under a jawbone of a sperm whale the other day? That thing is 12 feet long, right? So the tiller of a big ship like this might have been 8 or 9 feet long. And remember, it's all carved, right? I don't know about you. I would love to see this ship. But if you asked me to go on a voyage for 3 years, this would not be the ship I would choose at all. No way. Why? It's old. It seems unreliable. Remember he says it's like been all over the world. It looks like a soldier that's fought in the desert and also in the Arctic. Like, it's cool looking, but that's be the last ship I'd want to go to. And what's Ishmael's response? Second he sees it, that's the ship for us. You guys remember that? Now, discuss.
Okay, since like the ship is made out of like the whale bones.
It's not made out of it, but it's
Well, it has
decorated.
aspects
Yes.
of like, could that be like since it's a whaling ship, could that be an intimidation to the whales, like saying like this is your fate?
Oh, well, that's I like that. Because, do you know, I don't know, you guys ever heard of these, like, this is terrible what I'm about to say. But, you know, some savage soldiers in the old days, what they would do is they'd wear necklaces. Have you ever heard of this? Of like the enemies they killed, they cut their ears off or their nose off or parts of their bodies, and then they would like hang them on their neck. It's very savage, right? But I think Emma's right. It's like, oh, this is what I do, right? I consume and I capture and I trophy myself with my foe, right? And that's what the Pequod is. There's something really intimidating about this ship. Yeah.
Also, it seems like kind of what we just talked about. There's certain parts of fate playing into this because he was saying how usually somebody who would hear about the captain the way he did would usually shy away from that, but that actually intrigued him. Like he wanted to.
Okay, listen, what she said is really important. I hope you make a note of this, Mikey. Mikey, are you making notes on things? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so listen, I hope you wrote a bunch of things down about the Pequod, but I think one of the things that TK is getting at is this. The choice of the Pequod says a lot about Ishmael, doesn't it? What is he drawn to?
Things that are
He's drawn to the strange, right? He is drawn to the strange. He's drawn to the exotic, to the things that would intimidate other people. Look, think about this for a minute. Who's his new friend? A cannibal who's got teeth that are filed, covered with tattoos, a pagan, idol-worshipping cannibal, right? What inn was he drawn to? The Spouter Inn, which was all dilapidated and basically falling apart, but he just like loved it. He thought it was something charming about it, right? Hey, look, where is the place that whaling is really cooking and really going well these days? Your answer correctly. Where is it? It's New Bedford, but he doesn't want to go. Where does he want to go? The original, the old school, right? Like that's where he wants to go. You with me? Look, I don't know if I asked you guys this before, but we got some old Baltimore types in here. You ever have family come out from out of town to, like, they're from Florida or whatever, and they like, oh, you know what I want to eat because I'm in Maryland? Crab, right? And now, if you say, like, okay, great, Saturday night we're going to get crabs, do you bring them to, like, the Red Lobster?
Maybe.
No. Why not, Mikey?
It's not like authentic to Baltimore.
Yeah, it's not like the real thing. You can get that, in like Nebraska, right? Where would you? Do you have a place you'd go? If you came to Annapolis, we'd go to this place called Cantler's. It's right on the water. It's picnic tables. You cover everything with paper. They pour them out, right? And you're hammering them. You're like, this is the real thing, right? That's Ishmael all over the place. I mean, frankly, here's one way of thinking. He is a romantic, right? Listen, look, remember when they were arguing about his pay? In the end, what did he basically say about pay? He didn't really care. He's like, as long as I get my bread and my board and my bread, I don't really care. I'm not really interested in worldly wealth. But what is he clearly interested in? Adventure, experience, learning, right? Pursuit of things that fascinate him. That is his jam, right? He's not interested in acquiring a lot of wealth. Okay, nice. Now, there's more. This is a major chapter, chapter 16. So I want to point out maybe a couple of things more since we have a little more time. And that is about Quakers. Okay, I want to say a word or two about Quakers. This is important for the book, but it's actually important for the context of the... Stop. No, don't move. I want to just point out something here before you go. Ready for this? Listen carefully. There is in this book and in this experience a curious confluence. I'm going to use that word a lot, this unit. And it's a confluence between the following things. Ready for this? Quakers, whaling, and abolitionism. What smart apple out there remembers, where did Frederick Douglass give his first speech? He went to do you guys remember this? When he escaped, he went to New Bedford. What did he do for a living? He caulked ships. Do you remember this? Yeah. Most of them would have been whaling ships. Now, then he went to Nantucket. He gave his first public speech in Nantucket. Now listen, the Quakers were famously persecuted by the Puritans. Where would you go if you'd go to some far out hinterland, right? Like an island, perhaps. Are you with me? Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket was largely populated by Quakers. But Quakers were also against slavery. So you'd see a lot of runaway slaves drawn to these parts of Massachusetts. And then guess what? What kind of trade is practiced in these places? Whaling. And guess what kind of world whaling is? It's a meritocracy. Do you know what I mean by that? No. Who gets the power in a meritocracy? The people who are skilled. And watch Queequeg throw a harpoon tonight. All right, break.
Do you want our
Oh, yeah.